Sorry, I just asked you to sit down, but anyway, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning to everyone. To start our program, I will now request everybody to please rise for the Philippine National Anthem. Thank you.
Lupang hinihang tuwid ka ng mag-ibig, sa manlulupi di ka masisiin, sa nagkakakulog sa sinulat, sa langit ang magaw, nagulat ang tula at hawit sa paglayang minamahal, ang isa kang nakawat ko'y tagumpay na naglilingin, ang bituin na araw niya kailang kamay di magdilingin, lupa ng araw ng balat at pagsikat, ay langit sa piling mo, aming ligaya na pagkay ng api, ang namatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Please take your seats. A pleasant morning to all our guests, ambassadors and members of the Diplomatic Corps, partners from the United Nations agencies in the Philippines, colleagues in the Philippine government, members of the academe, and other partners, as well as students and youth representatives from various universities and organizations. On behalf of the Office of United Nations and International Organizations of the Department of Foreign Affairs, I know it's a long title, I am pleased to welcome all of you to the celebration of the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. I am Ambrosio Brian Enciso III. I am Deputy ASEC for UNEO, and will be your host for today, all the way until lunchtime. And our event this morning is entitled UN Day 2025, a celebration of 80 years of hope and endeavor. This is being organized by the Department of Foreign Affairs in partnership with United Nations Philippines. This year holds a special significance as it marks the, of course, 80th anniversary of the founding of the United Nations. We are celebrating both, of course, the UN's founding anniversary, as well as 8 decades of the Philippines' membership in the organization. Opening this event is one of our most senior and most respected diplomats. She has served as Consul General to Los Angeles, and she currently serves, and was also ambassador to Australia and Myanmar. She is currently the DFA's Undersecretary for Policy and the Director General of the for operations of the National Organizing Committee for the Philippines hosting of ASEAN next year. Ladies and gentlemen, may I call upon the Honorable Undersecretary Maria Helen B. de la Vega.
Thank you, Umbo, for that generous introduction. United Nations Resident Coordinator, His Excellency Arnold Peral, Ambassadors, Your Excellencies, and members of the Diplomatic Corps, honored guests, a pleasant morning to all. I wish to welcome all of you to the UN Day 2025, a celebration of hope and endeavor organized by the Department of Foreign Affairs in partnership with the United Nations in the Philippines. Our event today is part of a series of events for the 80th anniversary of the United Nations and an advanced commemoration of the UN Day, which is celebrated every 24th of October. May I also acknowledge at this juncture all our former ambassadors who have been with us through this journey in the UN, especially one of our most beloved multilateralist, Ambassador Libran Cabactulan, whom I met just, where is he? Thank you to our mentors in the United Nations. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to offer some reflections on the UN's 80th anniversary. 80 years ago, from April to June 1945, representatives of 50 countries gathered in San Francisco to light a spark of hope after going through a time of great strife. Together, these pioneers forged a covenant of peace and prosperity for all nations and peoples, the UN Charter. The UN Charter is the distillation of the dreams and aspirations of a world weary from the ravages of war, and determined to build a true community of nations. This document is the indelible record of the collective voice of, I quote, "We the peoples of the United Nations," close quote, as written in the preamble, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war. The UN Charter laid down the core principles that until now are sacrosanct: fundamental human rights, dignity and worth of the human person, international law, and better standards of life in larger freedom. That same year, in October 24, the 50 countries that signed the UN Charter, along with Poland, which did so at a later date, became the first and founding members of the United Nations. The Philippines was among these 51 pioneers, and only one of 3 in Asia. Today, we honor the determination of those who came before us, who bravely serve as the world's moral compass during a dark and uncertain chapter in humanity's history. For us Filipinos, we remember our former leaders who helped erect the foundations of multilateralism. Led by General Carlos P. Romulo, who eventually became the 4th President of the UN General Assembly, our delegation to San Francisco stood tall amongst the most brilliant minds of that time. To this day, we continue to aspire to follow the trail that they have blazed. Their work gave us a legacy to uphold, to continue to hope, and to endeavor. For the past 80 years, the Philippines has been carrying on this tradition of multilateralism in the United Nations and beyond. We have stood behind the cause of developing countries, championed climate action and human rights, advocated for disarmament and non-proliferation, and fought for the maintenance of international rules-based order. We have been a voice for women and children, migrants, indigenous peoples, persons with disabilities, and other groups in vulnerable situations. We have called for reforms of the UN development system, the Security Council, and the international financial architecture. We have been a supporter and donor to many UN agencies, international organizations, and humanitarian funds. What I can confidently say about the Philippines is that we are not content to be passive actors in global spaces, consistent with our Philippine brand of multilateralism. It is the same brand as a partner, pathfinder, and peacemaker that we will bring with us to the Security Council should we have the honor of being a non-permanent member for the term 2027 to 2028. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, this reflection and expression of commitment is the same message that Secretary of Foreign Affairs Maria Teresa P. Lazaro delivered at the recent General Debate of the High-Level Week of the 80th UN General Assembly, when she reaffirmed the Philippines' resolve to continue to extend our steady hands in New York, Geneva, Vienna, Bangkok, Nairobi, Rome, and the cradles of joint action as a partner, pathfinder, and peacemaker. We are proud to have been active in these spaces and beyond. Here at home, we are transforming Manila into a regional hub and a meeting point where global conversations converge and thrive. In the past 2 years, we have brought to the region numerous international conferences on disaster risk reduction, women, peace and security, middle-income countries, health, rights of seafarers, IHL, among others. We offered Manila to be the home of international bodies, including the board of the fund responding to loss and damage. These initiatives are examples of how the Philippines is expanding its engagements at the national and global stage, part of our commitment to the spirit of open dialogue and multilateralism. And we still have a full calendar as we close the year. Thank you to our diligent and hardworking Assistant Secretary for United Nations, Assistant Secretary Isa Almojuela. In the 3rd week of November, we will be hosting the IAEA International High-Level Forum on Nuclear Technology for Controlling Plastic Pollution, or the NUTEC, or NUTEC. In that same week, we will also be hosting the first ever ASEAN Regional Forum workshop on peace and security in outer space. Co-chaired with Australia and Singapore, we will be infusing our region's views and experiences into this important global conversation. It is a prelude to our year-long chairship of ASEAN, which we would be assuming in 2026. By doing our part here and abroad, and by bringing critical conversations to the Philippines, we are sending the message that middle-income and developing countries are ready to be co-architects of global solutions. We're also leveling up our collaboration with the UN Philippines, which has been our close partner in bridging reforms at the global and national levels. We are encouraged to see that the initiative that we started with the 2024 to 2028 UN Sustainable Development Cooperation Framework is starting to expand into a broader vision of true development cooperation. This comes at the right time when financing difficulties and other challenges demand us to be more efficient, transparent, and intentional. The recent initiative of DepDev, launched during the Philippine Development Forum on 6 October 2025, is a step towards this direction, furthering our vision for development cooperation with bilateral and multilateral partners that are focused on impact, scale, and synergy. The UN in the Philippines has also been a good partner in disaster risk reduction, a key area of collaboration as we bear the brunt of extreme weather conditions brought about by climate change. Last Monday, October 13, the Philippines joined in marking the International Day for Disaster Risk Reduction, which spotlighted the urgent need to address the escalating costs of disasters. Reducing risks and building resilience goes hand in hand with rapid response. As a strong supporter and advisory board member of the Central Emergency Response Fund, we urge you to upscale your support during the fund's 20th anniversary this year. This is especially critical as disasters and emergencies increase in frequency and scale. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, during today's commemorative event, we have with us esteemed representatives from the government and the UN agencies, the diplomatic corps, private sector, CSOs, and the academe. We are making sure that we are promoting inclusion as we aim to implement national and global goals such as the SDGs. I also wish to make special mention of the over 30 youth and student representatives from several universities and organizations who are also joining us today. So, if you are listening closely, please raise your hands when I call your institution. It's like the principal asking the students. Philippine Women's University, thank you. De La Salle Model United Nations Community, School of Diplomacy and Governance, De La Salle College of St. Benilde, Ateneo de Manila, Bedan International Studies Association, San Beda College, Alabang, and the Lyceum of the Philippines, University in Manila. I am excited to have our youth representatives with us here today. We will pass the torch to you as the caretakers and stewards of diplomacy, global governance, and multilateralism. Friends, in remembering the Philippines' legacies as a founding member of the UN, let us cast our gaze ahead towards a future where Filipinos continue to help reimagine and rebuild a brand of multilateralism fit for a changing world. After 80 years, we owe it to the people of the world to reshape the UN into an international organization with a clear value proposition that is responsive to the needs of today's world and which can respond to contemporary challenges. As Secretary Lazaro has aptly said, the measure of credibility for the UN is whether it can hold its sovereign promise in today's world, where nations shape the future on equal terms. I urge all of you to take this opportunity to pull our heads together and gather the passion, tenacity, and wisdom to face up to this challenge. Today's commemoration is but another small contribution, a modest contribution of the Philippines to this noble enterprise. I wish everyone a productive, memorable, and enjoyable day ahead. Thank you, and mabuhay po tayong lahat.
Thank you very much, Undersecretary De La Vega. You have honored us immensely with your presence this morning. Our next speaker was former UN resident coordinator to Tunisia and Ecuador. He has a long career with the United Nations, serving in various capacities in Colombia, Mexico, Brazil, New York, and Cuba. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage the current United Nations resident coordinator in the Philippines, Mr. Arnaud Peral.
Good morning, mabuhay. That's such a nice introduction. Thank you so much for the generosity. Good morning to all of you. It's really an honor, a pleasure. It's humbling to be here to celebrate the 80th anniversary of the United Nations. Honorable Marilena B. de la Vega, Undersecretary for Policy of the Department of Foreign Affairs, thank you so much for your words, for your inspiring words about this celebration. Assistant Secretary of the Department of Foreign Affairs, Maria Teresa Almojuela, thank you so much for all your support, as always, and all the Department of Foreign Affairs. Good morning to all my colleagues from the Diplomatic Corps, also for my colleagues of the UN system, to the youth who are with us this morning, and all of you. 80 years of the United Nations, 80 years celebrating in the Philippines. It means a lot because the Philippines is really the country that illustrates what multilateralism and commitment to multilateralism means. As a founding members, for 80 years, the Philippines have been contributing and supporting the work in the United Nations. The list is very long of those contributions. And you continue today as illuminating the world, not only by your contributions to multilateral agreements, to support to a new vision for the future, by integrating global commitment in national policies, aligning the National Development Plan with the Sustainable Development Goal, and so on and so forth. But you also innovate in your public policies, and this is also so important for the United Nations, because you bring examples that we can also replicate and use and learn from for other contexts. You mentioned, Undersecretary, the leadership of the Philippines in disaster risk reduction, for instance. And I want to celebrate the recent signature by the President of a new bill that is widely called as the Anticipatory Action Bill, but that will allow the country to declare national emergency, a disaster emergency, even up to 72 hours before a disaster. This is unique. I mean, this is the first country in the world to adopt such a policy. And it will help unlock resources by LGOs, by the government, and it will help save lives, help be a lot more efficient. And in so many fronts, the Philippines have been innovating and bringing this knowledge to the world and sharing it to the world. So I think this is really the spirit of multilateralism. You know, in this, reflecting on what to share with you briefly this morning, the United Nations it's like an iceberg, right? You just see the tip of the iceberg, but there's so much more behind. And these exchange of experiences through soft cooperation, through different mechanisms that are being put in place in the UN, it's not just a top shock. a talk shop. It's really a mechanism of exchange of knowledge of our successes and our failures. And I think it's extremely important as it is. And there are parts of the work of the United Nations that are not always that visible. In the Philippines, you mentioned that we have this cooperation framework and we are aligned with the National Development Plan. And I think this governance of our cooperation is very strong and very solid. And I thank you for that, because this alignment is fundamental to all go in the same direction, working to consolidate peace in Barm, to support the efforts in disaster risk reduction and management, and so on and so forth. But we are also helping to help shape the future legislations and public policies. Currently, the network of UN agencies in the country is supporting more than 80 pieces of legislations from different angles: health, education, disaster management, nutrition, peace, barn legislations. There's so much happening where we are actually connected to what the country is trying to achieve. And we are helping by sharing experiences and helping by also bringing some technical expertise for this alignment with international standards. So thanks to the Philippines for being a true multilateralist. The UN is also a punching ball. And it's a punching ball for everything that doesn't work, for every failure, for every shortcoming, for every frustration about the state of the world. And that's fine. That's fine. We can be this punching ball because we need one, right? We need to channel the frustrations of the member states, of the publics, of the youth, of everybody that would like to see faster results to the conflicts, to wars, to poverty, to hunger, to some of the other problems that we wished to have eliminated 80 years ago, but are still here. And those frustrations has to be channeled. So it's fine if the United Nations could be a punching ball once in a while and assume it. And we don't respond, we don't push back, and we assume because it's an evolving. As the world is evolving, as the world is transforming itself, we need also to transform. So we need to reform ourselves, and the commitment of the member states to help the different stream of reforms is extremely, extremely important. So the worst case scenario is dropping the ball of having this global forum that we have, because the UN is hope. The UN is hope for billions of people who aspire to a better and safer life. It was true 80 years ago, it is still true today. So we have to consolidate and make it better, faster, and more efficient in delivering. Because the UN is the global forum that humanity needs to ease tensions, to converge in vision, in values, in principles, to agree to disagree without violence, and to find global solution to global problems. So again, thank you for the Philippines for being a champion of multilateralism and for hosting this beautiful event this morning. Maraming salamat po.
Thank you very much, Mr. Peral. And once again, thank you for United Nations Philippines for partnering with us in this celebration. Today, our program, ladies and gentlemen, has two parts. This morning's session, which we're having now, will be followed by a diplomatic reception at around noon, and it will be keynoted by the Secretary of Foreign Affairs. So, moving on, continuing with this morning's session, we will begin with a lecture entitled Retracing the Philippines' Legacy in the United Nations. Our speaker and lecturer is a Filipino historian who is currently an assistant professor of history at the De La Salle University. He completed his bachelor's and master's degrees in history in 2005 and 2010, respectively. He holds a doctoral degree in anthropology from the University of the Philippines in Diliman. So, ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, please welcome with a round of applause Professor Michael Charlson Xiao Chua.
Undersecretary De La Vega, UN Resident Coordinator, Mr. Perol, members of the Diplomatic Corps, representatives of UN agencies and other people and organizations trying to do good in this world, friends from the Department of Foreign Affairs, and I would like to also commend the students who are here and to greet them. Thank you for being here. You're the future of our country. You're the future of peace in the world. Mabigat, mabigat. Ladies and gentlemen, 80 years ago, on October 24, 1945, the United Nations was born after a devastating world war, the second in the history of mankind. In looking back at this history today, we also ask the question, is the Philippines important to the United Nations? Because we always ask ourselves, are we, Filipinos, even important to the world? There was a famous story on the birth of the United Nations that I thought was apocryphal, fake news, until I actually read the primary source. And I will quote, Senator Warren Austin of the U.S. delegation was chairman of the committee designing the official seal. A proposed design was sent round to all heads of delegations while we were still in San Francisco. When I saw it, I promptly went to see Senator Austin to complain. The Philippines is not on the world map. But General, Senator Austin explained, your country is too small. We can't put every country on this seal. Don't you realize that if we tried to include the Philippines on a map of this scale, it would be nothing more than a dot? All right, I said. Give us that dot. The man was General Carlos P. Romulo. Writing before he died in 1985 in the book, Romulo, a Third World Soldier at the UN. The Philippines, although just a dot on the map, had contributed much to its development. In fact, even before we gained full independence on July 4, 1946, Carlos P. Romulo became one of the 51 signers of the Charter of the United Nations in June of 1945 at the San Francisco Conference as a delegate of the Commonwealth of the Philippines. As he said, he was there at the birth. In 1949, he became the president of the United Nations General Assembly and was known, and some people mistake in the Philippines that he became a Secretary General. No, but he was president of that high position as the 1949 president of the General Assembly. And he became known as Mr. United Nations for his continuous work with the UN, which lasted 40 years. That's half of the history of the United Nations today. In tribute to General Romulo, I would like to show you this video from my former television segment in the government station.
Si Carlos P. Romulo ay maraming bagay para sa Pilipinas. Isang manunulat, mamamahayag, diplomatiko, bayani. Ito ay sa kabila ng kanyang pagiging little. Ang karagdagang detalye tungkol kay Romulo mula kay Xiao Chua sa Xiao Time, Ako ay Pilipino. Makasaysayang araw po, it's Xiao Time! Sa Miyerkules, January 16, 2013, pipiliin na ang Miss Tarlac City 2013 para sa pagdiriwang ng pista ng aming bayan sa January 20. Tutungo po ako doon upang maging isa sa mga hurado. Suportahan po natin ang piyesta, paanyaya ni Dong Bautista at Cloydy Manluta. Sa isa pang bayan sa lalawigan ng Tarlac, sa Kamiling, isinilang naman 115 years ago ngayong araw, January 14, 1898, ang isang little giant, si General Carlos P. Romulo. Si General Romulo ang maliit na mama na kasama ni General Douglas MacArthur sa makasaysayang larawan na ito ng kanilang pagbabalik sa Leyte noong 1944. Parang bulinggit lang, ngunit hindi man umabot sa tangkad na 5'4", siya ay isa sa pinakadakilang Pilipinong lingkod bayan na lumakad sa mukha ng daigdig. Nagsilbi siya sa 8 Pangulo ng Pilipinas mula kay Manuel Quezon hanggang kay Ferdinand Marcos. Imagine, liban sa Little Giant, marami pang ibang ikinabit na titulo kay Romulo para Beauty Queen o boksingero. Si Romulo ay isa sa mga pensyonado na nag-aral sa Estados Unidos. Nakilala sa galing niyang sumulat at manalumpati. Naging mamamahayag, propesor ng UP at tagapayo ni Quezon. Nagwagi ng Pulitzer Prize, ang unang hindi Amerikano na nanalo ng journalistic award na ito. Naging voice of freedom ng radyo mula sa Corregidor at nang hirangin ni Quezon na kalihim ng impormasyon. 2 taon niyang inikot ang Estados Unidos upang magsalita sa ngalan ng mga sundalong Pilipino-Amerikano sa Pilipinas. Remember freedom. Nakilala siya bilang Mr. Philippines. Sa sobrang kasikatan niya, naging kinatawan siya ng Pilipinas sa paggawa ng charter ng United Nations o UN at kasama sa mga unang lumagda sa pagtatatag nito kahit na hindi pa tayo independent nation noon. Noong 1949, nahalal si Romulo na Pangulo ng ika-4 na General Assembly ng UN. Kailangan liwanagin na isang sangay lamang ang General Assembly ng UN at hindi siya naging pinuno ng UN o Secretary General tulad ng napagkakamalian ng iba. Mataas na posisyon pa rin ang Pangulo ng General Assembly. Nakaupo siya sa 3 phone books. Makita ng madla sa kanyang unang talumpati bilang Pangulo. Tinawag siyang Mr. United Nations. Bago magretiro sa diplomatic service, naging embahador pa sa Washington, D.C. at kalihim ng ugnayan panlabas. Ngunit noong 1962, hindi pa rin pinayagan ni Pangulong Diosdado Macapagal na makapagretiro. Nahirang na Pangulo ng Universidad ng Pilipinas noong 1962. Matapos pa nito ay nahirang pa sa ilang pang pwesto sa gabinete. At sa kabila ng kanyang edad, ang balong si Romulo ay nakapangasawa pa muli ng isang magandang Amerikanang mamamahayag, si Beth Day Romulo. Tinawag tuloy siyang Karate Kid. Sumakabilang buhay siya noong December 15, 1985 sa edad na 87 at hinimlay sa libingan ng mga bayani sa Fort Bonifacio. Bakit ba ang galing niya? Minsan kanyang sinabi, I had to be outstanding to prove I was capable, not in spite of having been born a Filipino, but because I was a Filipino. Mr. Philippines, Mr. United Nations, Karate Kid, salamat sa pagsasabing, ako ay Pilipino, marangal. Ako po si Xiao Chua, para sa telebisyon ng bayan. And that, Xiao.
Thank you very much. I would like to also show you another very short clip. Let's feel the pride of 1949 when the Philippines was president of the UN General Assembly. Let's play the... It's better to fight out differences here than in the battlefield. We are not a small country. We can describe ourselves as a medium-sized economy. And in many ways, it was appropriate that even before independence, we already have been a member of the United Nations because the UN, of course, facilitates 2 things, 2 great things. One is diplomacy, among other things, of course, diplomacy, and number 2 is human rights. And even before the coming of the Spaniards, the Filipinos were already adept in trade, in diplomacy, and the evidence of this is, of course, the Laguna Copper Plate inscription from 900 AD. So we had diplomacy, we have trade, and some people suggest in this country that we do not have a concept of human rights, the individual human rights. We do not have a concept of that. Because as Asians, we have a greater good than individual human rights. And I tell them, that's... I'm sorry for the undiplomatic language. Sorry for the French. That's not true. We have a concept of human rights. We have a concept of diplomacy. We have a concept of trading, which is anchored on the Filipino core concept of kapwa, which has no English equivalent, no English word equivalent. But to explain it, it's kapwa means to see yourself in the other person. That's human rights. That's how we deal with other people. And we do kapwa culture for the kaginhawaan, well-being of people, kapayapaan, peace, and kabutiang loob, goodness. The good society. And when pakikipagkapwa is cut, then we go to war as peoples. And so, it is also appropriate that we were part of the United Nations even before independence, because the very first meeting, which is called the UN Declaration of 1942, we actually signed. Manuel Luis Quezon, who actually have a film showing in cinemas today. One of his legacy was he was there at the first meeting of leaders, United Nations, in Washington, D.C. in 1942. So, yes, let us be proud that we are actually part of the beginning of the United Nations. Although we are known to prioritize America in our foreign policy, when we created the Department of Foreign Affairs in 1946, headed by then Vice President Elpidio Quirino as concurrent secretary, he started from scratch and formulated the 4 pillars of Philippine diplomacy, which prioritizes 1, close cooperation with the United Nations, and only then, number 2, close relations with the United States, followed by 3, friendly relations with neighboring countries, and 4, devotion to world peace. Parang Miss Universe, ano? When Quirino himself became president, he demonstrated this in a number of ways. When the International Refugee Organization, IRO, the predecessor of the United Nations High Commissioner for the Refugees, or UNHCR, requested a safe refuge for what were called the White Russians, no country wanted to take them in since they were still reeling from the effects of the last World War. The Philippines, barely 3 years as an independent country, took them in. The White Russians, numbering 5,500, were pro-Tsarist Russians who fled the Communist Bolshevik Revolution in 1917 to Shanghai, China, only to find themselves being endangered by the establishment of the Communist People's Republic of China in 1949. They were housed in Tubabo Island, Giwan, Eastern Samar for 3 years. And when Quirino visited them, he had the fences taken down to make the people feel that they are not prisoners here, but they were free. Quirino's granddaughter, Ruby Quirino Gonzalez Meyer, noted what was written in the identification cards of the refugees, that they were identified as, quote, under the protection of the Republic of the Philippines. Just imagine, the Filipinos were taking care, the Republic, 3 years pa lang sa pagiging malaya, we are already taking care of the downtrodden. Kina May G. Kwan, Giwan's municipal administrator, I think she's now councilor, and historian, wrote in a journal article, quote, exuding the famed hospitality of the Filipino, the White Russians in Tubabao comprised the 5th of 9 waves of refugees assisted by the Philippines since the 1920s. This episode is also the country's first international humanitarian assistance as a new republic. Let's play the last video.
The 1930s were a dark time in Europe.
Next.
The Nazi Party steadily moving toward the final solution of what they called their Jewish problem.
Hindi ito.
Stormtroopers swept across Germany and Austria, burning synagogues, smashed.
If we don't have it, it's okay. White Russians. No problem. This commitment to the UN was tested another time when the organization adopted UN Security Council Resolution 82 on June 25, 1950, which called on its member states to condemn the occupation of South Korea by the North Koreans. Only 16 countries responded, which included the Philippines. President Quirino told the 2nd Battalion combat troops, end quote, "You who are to go now will be the first to carry the flag of your own sovereign nation abroad in the war for freedom. Poor as we are, this country is making a great sacrifice in sending you there, but every peso invested in you is a sound investment for the perpetuation of our liberty and freedom." Unquote. During the Battle of Yultong, only the Philippine line was not breached by the North, and we became known as the Stonewall of the United Nations. In 1953, President Quirino, even sent his own son, Lieutenant Tommy Quirino, and his own son-in-law, fighter pilot Lieutenant Chito Gonzalez, to Korea. Today, South Koreans thank the Philippines for defending their democracy, which had brought them much development. I would like to give my sympathy to Mr. Perol because of what he said about the United Nations being a punching bag of the frustrations of the world. Some think that the United Nations is useless, for it had not prevented wars since they do not have police powers against sovereign states. But just remember a world before the United Nations, when every 20, 30 years, there's a conflict among nations that just come out before the United Nations. To the credit of the UN, we haven't had another global conflict since then. Because at least for 80 years, countries have this platform to talk their differences and cooperate to make the world a better place. At least, nag-uusap-usap tayo. Kailangan nag-uusap-usap lang. Kahit hindi nagkakasundo. Walang problema. And so, we saw this during the global pandemic. The world effort is the suffering of peoples. You know, vaccine development is like 10 years. Usual vaccine development, we're able to do it in 1 year. Because of the cooperation of countries. The UN is helping us imagine the world, a future that is better, through the Sustainable Development Goals that in the De La Salle University we put in every syllabi of our university. And that is what we call bayanihan. We have a concept of bayanihan where we cooperate with each other. That's very Filipino. And each Filipino, because of this SDG, can feel that they're part of that effort, of that bayanihan, of the bayani. We have joined important UN missions for peacekeeping. We have spread the kapwa culture around the world because of the UN. Through climate action, climate justice, like what Mr. Lavinia is doing, through conflicts, resolution, and for the care of cultural heritage, which is close to my heart because I am a historian. We try to ease the suffering of the world, and we give kaginhawaan, relief, well-being to the world. We are not a small country. We are more than a dot. Itaas mo ang noo mo, Pilipino, may papel ka sa kapayapaan ng daigdig. Mabuhay ang United Nations. Mabuhay ang Pilipinas. Maraming salamat po. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Chua. We will be going to the forum part of the lecture. So may I request for the